Vampire. I have a very special guest with me today, Mr. Pedro. How's it going, bro?
Pretty good, brother. How's everybody doing out there?
You guys probably familiar with Mr. Pedro because I've been uploading these video clips that it was last weekend. You came over and we trained, right?
Oh yeah,
Yes. So I've been uploading those videos for you guys. Hope you guys are enjoying it. And yeah, we got a chance here today to talk about some martial arts and just some cool stuff in general.
absolutely. I'm really glad. Uh, the how I like how the videos turned out because it's always good to see uh the to see him again, and then you can like see, okay, well, I need to do this better. I need to do that better. Oh, he did that good, or you're always. It's good to see what you need to brush up on.
Yeah. I mean, professional athletes. I mean, they film themselves and they watch their movements and stuff, and they study. So it just makes sense for modern day times. We can do this, and it's great to
Hmm.
be able to see. Um, so your background, man. I mean, you've studied a lot of things. One of the things I was really impressed with was what is it? The I'll say it in Japanese. The Hakkyokuken.
Baji Shrin.
Okay, yes, that dude. You know, when you showed me, demonstrated some movements. I wish I could have recorded that, but those movements were awesome. A lot of people may not be familiar with that kung fu style. Could you kind of explain?
Yeah, so Baji Shrin is old kung fu style from mainland China that was used to protect the emperors. They
Mm,
were the emperor's bodyguards. Um, even Mao Zedong uh, used Baji practitioners as his bodyguards. And so Baji has that reputation of being the bodyguard style in China and in Taiwan.
nice.
It was originally came from the long spear, like a pike. And so they would train with the spears, and they do these weird, well, not weird, like these very core, very rooted sort of movements to move the spear. My teacher has one of those spears, and I'm a big dude, and I have a hard time lifting it.
Wow.
Like, and he's way smaller than me, and he's able to manipulate it and thrust and do all the movements. And so it's very Baji and a lot of Chinese martial arts. They're very concentrated on body movement, proper body alignment, proper rooting in your stance, proper horse stance. Um, so it focuses a lot on that. And in terms of the style itself, Baji is a very aggressive, linear. We're gonna crash in and hit you with elbows, fists, head, hip, back, shoulder, whatever lands. Because it was a bodyguard style. You're fighting in close, protecting somebody, and
Right.
you have to put them down quickly. For reference, you the video game Virtual Fighter, the character Akira, he's
That's
a
right.
Banji Shrin
Nice.
uh,
Nice.
practitioner, and two, it's famous. The game's Shenmue. Um, they have a lot of Baji moves,
Okay.
and I think the third one deals with the main character going to, I think, mainland China and learning more Baji.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
so
You One of the things that you explained to me, I remember, was first of all, Hakkyokuken in Japanese, it's eight ultimate fist. That's
mhm,
the translation. That's how you write it in kanji. And you were saying that the eight ultimate fists are actually parts of the body. And
parts of the body. Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's the head, the fist, the elbow, the shoulder,
yes,
the back, the hips, knees, and feet.
that's right. So that's so cool. And the only reason I'm a little bit familiar is because on Kurobi World,
Mm,
there's a kung fu guy. He came out and he was demonstrating it, and it's one of those I've seen it many times in kung fu training where guys are like bumping against trees and stuff, and they're just using their whole body to strike with. It's it's not necessarily the fist or the elbow. I mean, they could use anything else. Like you're saying, the back can be a weapon.
Yeah, and that goes back to the old days. They didn't have a whole lot of maybe they didn't have weapons available to them, or they didn't have a lot of training gear, so they used each other. They had to strengthen up their body. Um, yeah, a lot of those training exercises, like you say, you're bumping into each other. You're learning how to control the force, how to get rid of the fear of going in. Body conditioning.
Yes.
So it covers a lot of avenues. For a lot of the viewers, so one of the kind of famous moves is one of the elbows. So you'll see somebody in a horse stance and the elbow poking out, this hand here, and then the feet in a horse stance.
Right.
That's a real popular sort of signature move of this style. People see that and they go, okay, that's baji.
Okay. Yeah.
And that has a lot of interpretation. It could just be a strike to the sternum. You can cover and go in. This hand could be like a hikite, a pulling hand. Maybe you catch a strike, you pull, and then you elbow. Many different applications.
Nice. And I remember you telling me that the style, and this, I feel like kind of like with a lot of Chinese styles, they go into a ton of detail.
Yes. I mean, just take a Tai Chi class.
Yes.
Posture, alignment is everything in Chinese martial arts.
Right.
You know, if you're punching here in your shoulders too, okay, relax the shoulder. You know, fist is too stiff, relax the fist. You know, you tighten it at the end before impact. And horse stance too, you know. You'll get in horse stance, and a good teacher, they'll pull on you, push you, pull to check your root. For those guys, root is everything, because you generate power that way. You know, and so there's a lot of, especially with baji, there's a lot of, I believe in Japanese it's called nambaruki, like sort of same side movement.
Yes.
So baji does that a lot. It moves linear, and then you can later on you start kind of cutting the angle a little bit more to the 45, and then moving in. But you're moving the same side, so you're attacking whatever side is moving in is the side you're attacking with, and you just generate tremendous force.
Let's go into that a little bit because the viewers may not understand. Namba Anuki, what you're referring to is they were saying that is an old school way. The people of like hundreds of years ago used to walk this way versus today when we walk, it's opposite, right? So the opposite leg and the opposite arm come out. And they're saying that that is more of a muscular way of walking. And the old school ways, like you're saying, same leg, same side, same arm, same leg would go together. So it's more like you're walking like you're kind of doing this kind of, that's an exaggerated way of walking. But they're saying that was the old, more natural way of walking and less muscular, more skeletal, right?
Right. And I suppose what you could look at to kind of get an example of that, look at sumo. In sumo, you're taught right leg forward, right palm forward, so for left side forward, left leg, left hand.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it's exaggerated because they're in a low squatted stance, moving forward this way like that. But I mean, if you just try walking normally, right, like that, you kind of get a good idea of what they were talking about.
Right.
Because I think, isn't that a saying? I think nowadays that in Japan, normal person walks like this, but sumo walks same side.
The same side. Yes, probably something like you could spot a rikshi, which is that's a word for a sumo wrestler. And speaking of which, you have some sumo background. You came from judo and you went into sumo.
Correct.
You still do both, yeah?
Yeah, I do both. A little bit more sumo nowadays.
Okay.
But I'm looking to get back into judo. It's awesome. Sumo is awesome. I recommend it to anybody who's never tried it. Like, it's a grappling style. It's one of the oldest grappling styles. But it has a different energy. Like if you do different stuff like Greco-Roman or freestyle, BJJ, the sumo has that constant pressure.
Mm.
You constant pressure. So you're trying to work your techniques. You're trying to go for mawashi, the belt grab. You're trying to supari to push. You're trying to cut angles, but all while receiving tremendous pressure.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so and you only have a certain amount of space to work in.
Right.
It's a unique experience. It can certainly bolster your other martial arts skills.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the U.S., it's at the amateur levels. I mean, the pros are in Japan, and so it's growing. It's growing in the U.S. and it's growing worldwide. You're starting to see a lot of groups spring up, like in Poland or Russia and in different
Nice.
countries.
Yeah.
Because it's another grappling style that for the longest time was just mainly isolated to Japan, but thankfully, more people are getting exposure to it, and it's growing little by little. But it's a tough workout, man. I mean, a lot of people look at the Rikishi in Japan and think, "Oh, big fat guy," this and that. But those guys are strong and they're tough.
Right.
The workouts are tough. I mean, do a little ashiwaza, supari, butsukari, the different exercises, teppo. You get a good sweat going. You'll work on your stand-up grappling. It's just amazing all around.
It's no joke. You know, and one of the things that to me makes sumo very very interesting is that in obviously you have striking styles like kickboxing,
Mm-hmm.
Muay Thai, and boxing and all that, and then you have the grappling styles like judo, like you said, BJJ, sambo, and all that. And in the grappling styles, obviously they take out the striking element because they just
Mm-hmm.
want to focus on grappling. And same with the striking styles. A lot of times they take out the grappling elements because they want to focus on the striking, right? So,
Right.
but in sumo, you have the tsupari, the harite, which is
Mm-hmm.
the palm strike, which is it's not a palm strike because you're not allowed to strike, but it's that gray area in between that's so unique because you don't see that. It's almost like an honor system that you could shove them, but it's not a full-blown palm strike, but it's not a soft shove either.
No, no, and you hit the
No.
nail right. You hit the nail right on the head. There are actually some clips of people getting knocked out in sumo.
I've
In
seen
pro
it. I've
sumo.
seen it. Yeah. Yeah.
There's one where I believe it was Hakuho, one of the Yokozunas, where off the tachiai, um, he comes up and he kind of does like a forearm strike, almost looks like an elbow strike, but it's a forearm,
My
catches the
goodness.
guy in the jaw.
Yes.
He's seeing stars. The other fella.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of room I've noticed in sumo for those gray area, borderline, like we talked about actually last time, wrenching. That
yes.
yes, it's I've seen it. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was Asa Shoryu. He did it, but I mean, he has a reputation of being like the Mike Tyson of the sumo world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's unfortunate that happened. Um, and you don't want to hurt your opponent. But sometimes stuff happens. But if you do it on purpose, like, come on, dude.
it,
You know what I mean? Like, this is how they're making their living as well.
right.
There's that honor system
Now,
in all combat sports.
that guy, I'm sure you know who he is. Asa Shoryu is super famous,
Oh yeah.
and they called him Kenkazumo, and Kenka is like street fight.
Hmm.
So, like, do you think that he was kind of like that way, where it was definitely he took it to like it's like a street fight. It's like bring it. He's like that kind of mentality?
Yeah. Um, I don't like. Sometimes that's bound to happen
Mm.
in every combat sport.
Super
I
competitive, high level. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think sometimes too, if you want to bring that mentality and that energy, that's cool. But like, kind of control it too. You know what I mean? Like, don't be breaking necks and wrenching and putting people out of commission. I mean, you can be aggressive and sort of have the will to win and be that way, but I think there has to be like a balance there, you know.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Because even in a street fight, you mentioned Kenka. You know, even in a street fight, you can go all out and just knock somebody out, or you can like grapple them and control them,
Yeah.
and control the situation. You know, so there's always that room in there.
Yes, and on the street you might run into this guy again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And he might have his buddies, or he might have a weapon.
right. So yeah, the on the street you got to think about that. It's not just that one time. So yeah, definitely there's consequences.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because look at it this way, you know, he keeps fighting that way. Well, eventually he's going to get old, and injuries are just going to start catching up with him, and then there's going to be a younger guy that say, "Okay, I'm going to give you that energy."
Yeah.
You know, here's my Kenkasumu. You know,
exactly. Exactly. So the other thing I gotta talk to you about is another style that you're super into is FMA.
mm-hmm.
And could you please tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So I've been doing Filipino martial arts for about probably a good 8 or 9 years collectively. I dabbled in different styles. So I started out with Bahalana, Hero Arnis Eskrima, was cross training in modern Arnis,
Mm.
and then started training in Warriors Eskrima and Sayak Kali.
Mm.
Those are the form, and I had the privilege of dabbling a little bit into a lesser known family style, small style, Galleon clan Eskrima.
Okay.
And so been experiencing those 4 or 5 styles, and it's been a lot of fun. Filipino martial arts, I recommend them to everybody. People who not martial artists and people who have martial arts background, because working with the sticks is going to build up a lot of dexterity in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good skill. It's a good reflex builder for your hands. It's working with weapons, getting used to blocking, dodging a weapon coming at your face is good for like head movement and defensive movement.
Right.
You work with the knife. I mean, common tool, common weapon used in the street. You learn to use it. You learn to defend against it. And the empty hand portion of Filipino martial arts, the panatukan or cadena de mano, suntukan, whatever name it goes by, it's a good addition to your already skill set. There's a lot of good drills like hubad lubad,
Right.
that are just going to take your skills to the next level. It's been awesome. It's probably Filipino martial arts have been the martial art that I've dabbled in the most.
Okay.
And you know, it's ultimately it's just really fun.
Yeah, yeah, same here. I really like it. I feel like it's one of the few styles that I could see myself doing at 80.
Exactly.
I know some styles say that, they say, "Oh, yeah, our style you could do at your," and I'm kind of like, "Really? Are you sure about that?" And I don't see it. Yeah, but
No.
FMA for sure, Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, anything. I think anything weapon based. You know, some kendo, some kenjutsu, HEMA, FMA, and anything weapon related is good to good for the that you could do until old age. You know.
You just got to pick up the weapon, and then you could just air practice that. I've seen older guys like kendo masters and stuff. Like obviously they don't spar anymore once they're past 60 and stuff, but they're still doing the suburi, which is doing it in the air, and they're getting a great workout for them, and they get to practice on their skill for the rest of their entire lives. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, one of the coolest things I've seen is some Japanese document documentary. Seeing some of these naginata jutsu
Oh,
in Japan, and seeing a lot of older ladies doing that in their 70s, close to their 80s, and they're moving, teaching class, moving the naginata, staying active.
yeah,
It's really cool to see.
that's great. Yeah. What got you into martial art? This is turning into an interview.
No worries. So ever since I was a kid, as far back as I can remember, I don't know what it was. I saw it on TV, and it just enthralled me. It hooked me in. Back in the '90s, there used to be a TV show. I want to say it was called Masters or
Okay.
something like that. It was almost like a mix of like American Gladiators
Yes.
with like some '90s martial arts sort of
Yes.
characters and story. And I always liked this one character. I think his name was Tsunami, and
Okay.
he wore like the headband, and he had, I think, a picture of an actual tsunami on his uniform. And so they do American Gladiator type stuff, and then do martial arts like choreographed fights.
Was that Larry Lamb, one of the Ninja Turtles? Was he Tsunami? I know Olympus was Olympic gold medalist Taekwondo guy Herb Perez, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
See, he
I'm not a
played
hundred.
Olympus. They had all, like you said, all these different characters with these cool nicknames, like you're saying,
Yeah,
and that was
yeah.
like, well, right around the UFC came out. It was around that time, and they probably would have, this show that you're talking about probably would have dominated, and it would have been the next thing if it wasn't for the
Mm-hmm.
UFC.
Yes, because what was the UFC like '93, right? The
Yeah, it was
first one.
like '93, and I remember like when my friend got that pay per view
Mm-hmm.
for UFC one. I remember he asked me, he's like, "Do you think this is real?" And I said, "Probably not." Because at the
Mm-hmm.
time they were doing pay-per-views of like what you're saying where it was choreography, and they would make it seem like a street fight, and there would be like aikido versus taekwondo, boxer versus street fighter, and they would have like these tournaments, but it was choreographed, and that was on
Oh.
pay-per-view, and that was right before UFC 1 came out.
Yeah, that whole era is really interesting because it was almost like a fighting game. It was style versus
Oh,
style.
the Street Fighter 2 exploded onto the scene,
Hmm.
right? And then Mortal Kombat and then all the other ones. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so that was one of the main influences that kind of hooked me in from an early age was that show. Another
Yes.
thing was watching Kung Fu: The Legend Continues with David Carradine.
And
Oh,
Brandon with Brandon
and,
Lee.
and Brandon Lee. It,
Nice, nice. Yeah.
that one. So just from and then watching like Ninja Turtles and Batman, and so everything was like back then, '80s, '90s was like action oriented, right? Like all the movies and
Power Rangers. I mean, it's martial arts everywhere.
hmm
Everywhere. Yeah.
so that had a huge influence on me. And then but funny enough, I didn't start training until I got into high school,
Okay.
and so I trained a little bit of Jeet Kune Do with one of my good friends, his older brother, and then after that, I got into boxing. I went to a boxing gym and I did that, and then for the longest time, I just kind of took a break from martial arts. Um, and then I met a good friend of mine and started training with him. And then after that, I sought out FMA, and then it was just off to the races from there.
What made you sought out FMA?
I watched a video of Dan Inosanto giving a lecture on
Oh,
Filipino martial arts. What was it? I forget the event, but it was probably like an hour-long video, and he's just showing all the different weapons, the different techniques, and it captured my attention. I was like, dude, this is really cool. So that was the spark right there. Because in the past, like when I was in high school, I was more into like the kung fu and the maybe different karate styles, and
mm.
so I would have seen FMA here and there, but I was like, it's kind of weird, guys with sticks or whatever. Like I don't know what that's all about. But later on, I saw it and I was like, oh wow, that makes sense. So you're doing double stick, but it translates to empty hands.
Yes.
And it blew my mind almost, and I was like, okay, I gotta learn this stuff.
So that was Professor Danny Nosanto that
Yeah,
where you were
sound
like,
so exactly.
wow, okay, man, that's pretty awesome. That for me it was the perfect weapon.
Yes, that's another movie I saw when I was a kid.
Yeah. So watching that, it made perfect sense to me that the sticks and the weapons have that relationship.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember that fella. He was a
Yes.
Kempo guy.
Yes, Jeff Speakman. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he was still, those sticks are, famous for being eskrima sticks. So I wanted to learn American Kempo karate because of that, but there were no schools down in the valley. And my teacher, actually, he was a modern RNS guy, and he was like, "I'm going to teach you guys weapons, and we're going to start you guys off in weapons. You get to choose between, I believe it was the bow staff or the double sticks." I was like, "Dude, double sticks."
Double sticks all the way.
All the way. And then he was like, "This is a Filipino style." And I was like, never heard of it. I want to do American Kempo because of the movie, and I started learning. I was like, you know what? I don't care. This is awesome. so yeah, that for me, that was it. That was the start of FMA.
Yeah, that was a really good movie.
The Perfect Weapon? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a classic right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, real nice. Dude, did you hear so Jeff Speakman had said that he was supposed to be in Speed instead of Keanu Reeves. Yeah, that was supposed to be him. So it just, Hollywood politics, and he just didn't get the role, but if he had gotten the role, who knows? We probably would have seen a lot more from the guy.
He could have been starring in the John Wick movies instead of.
What if he was in the Matrix?
Right?
Right. That would be crazy. So, yeah.
Here's another movie. Have you ever watched the American Ninja movies?
Yeah, the old school, of course. Yeah.
With Michael Dudikoff, I remember watching those two when I was a kid. Me and my older brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just like bombarded with like martial arts stuff when I was a kid.
That era, like you said, man, is all martial arts all over.
Oh, and just a quick note on that, like it's just funny thinking about it, how like every movie from like the 80s, that big action movie is like the retired special forces guy living out in the woods by himself, and then they come, "We need you for one last mission," and then
right.
Then he kind of goes out, and it's just funny how it's such a trope now, but it was a norm back then,
Right. I mean, but when you think about like the 90s, that was in the 80s with Stallone and Arnold, they took action as far as you can go. Probably you can't go further than that, right? Two mega muscular. I mean, no one's built like that, right? And they just took it to another level. And then what are you gonna do after that? Well, the next guys that came in action wise was Van Damme and Seagal, so they went kind of like the skill route, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
that's a good point. I mean, Bloodsport, a big movie from Van Damme, Steven Seagal, Above the Law.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's real interesting.
I mean, they were the number one Hollywood guys at the time. Both of those guys, and so everybody else was doing martial arts movies, riding off of that bandwagon, right?
Right, and it's interesting to look back on it because we have Bruce Lee like in the 70s.
Yes.
And then like the 80s, you get the big action stars, the big machine guns, and then it kind of starts going back to that martial arts thing, right?
Well, in the 80s was they combined it with the ninjas, right? Ninjas were huge because
that's right.
Remember, like even in G.I. Joe, it had like Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, and, right? So I mean, ninjas were everywhere. So it was like after Bruce Lee, what's next? And it's almost like they looked around. They're like, okay, we already did the kung fu thing, and they went ninjas. Okay, let's because also the Karate Kid was 80s, right?
That's right. Yeah,
So
good
it
point.
kind of like went to Japan.
Hmm. And then it stayed in Japan too. I think John Claude is a Shotokan karateka, if I'm not mistaken, or
Could have
kickbox,
been, but Bloodsport was definitely it was
a ninja.
yeah, supposed to be ninjutsu. And Seagal, Aikido. So I mean, it
Hmm.
kind of had that Japan theme, but I think like you were saying, they mixed it with military at some point. So
Yeah,
I mean, American Ninja is a perfect example of that, right?
right. Now let me ask you this.
Mm.
So for us, I was born in '89 and grew up in the '90s. So for us, we're seeing all these martial arts movies, right? Bloodsport, Steven Seagal, the old Bruce Lee movies. Do you think that for kids maybe born in the 2000s, 2010s, do they that get into martial arts? What do you think gets them into it? Do you think it's more like UFC, combat sports, or do you think that media still plays a role in that?
Media is huge. What was around 2000? Well, you had the 9/11 thing happen. I remember reality TV shows were it just happened. Like the first Survivor was like 2000,
Yeah, somewhere around there.
right? 2002, and then the TV shows like just started. It wasn't like today's Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, but TV shows were getting huge. There were a million different TV shows at the time, like the what was it? Birds of Prey. What was the one? Relic Hunter.
Hmm.
Xena. Hercules.
Yeah,
All that stuff was coming out. So I guess that's what they grew up on.
yeah, I think so.
Watching that
Because it's
stuff.
like, yeah, because even on regular TV, like I said, we had the Master Show, we had Kung Fu, the Legend Continues. But I feel like, and I could be wrong, maybe people who from those times, born in the 2000s, 2010s, maybe MMA might be their main sort of what maybe got them into martial arts. Because
It's
I think
either
didn't the MMA movies come out too?
MMA movies,
Like,
or
was it
there
Never
was
Back
a
Down or?
transition going from maybe martial arts to superheroes. No,
Yeah, that's true.
maybe, or maybe that's more today. I don't know. It's
No, no, you're right because the Marvel movie's been around for who'd they start with? Iron Man, right?
Blade. No,
Oh yeah, Blade.
Blade was huge. That was like the first big. I mean, there were others before that, but that was big, big.
Yeah,
Like everyone was talking about Blade when it came out.
yeah. It's So I've seen the first two of
Mm.
Blade. One of my jobs, my supervisor let me borrow the movies, and they're really awesome. Donnie Yen, I think, is in the second one.
And they use some Filipino martial arts in there too, right? Because Wesley Snipes was into that. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, no, hard to say. My generation's a little bit older than you, so for me it was 80s and 90s,
Hmm.
but so by the time 90s came, I was training. I started in 1990.
Oh, right on.
And I was in junior high at the time, and that was my first real experience training, and I was renting all those movies, all the Van Damme, Seagal, Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. I was watching all of that, and working out while I'm watching it, doing the splits and all that stuff. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid in the '90s, I would mimic whatever I'd see him doing on TV. Just watching the movie. Oh, cool! You know?
Did you have any idea that you were gonna get so deep into martial arts at that time? Probably had no clue, right?
No clue. No clue. Funny how that turns out.
Right. You just never know. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm glad I did because the world of martial arts is an awesome world, man. I've been able to meet like so many awesome people, people from different parts of the world.
Yes.
Gotten to experience different cultures and learn about different cultures. I think martial arts is really good for kids. You know, physical fitness, self defense, confidence building, being able to learn about different cultures and countries. I'd recommend that to every parent. Get your kid into martial arts. Um, Nothing but good things come out of it, you know?
And I see people, you know, in normal everyday life, you see people without training, and
Mm-hmm.
and the people who have trained usually, and I'm not saying everyone who's trained is awesome and phenomenal and trustworthy. No, absolutely not, because there are some crooks and there are some bad people out there. But
True.
if you you're supposed to have a code, you know,
Mm-hmm.
a code of honor to follow. You're supposed to have a discipline. You know, I'm not saying we're all everyone that does martial arts follows it 100%, but we have some idea of that. Whereas to someone who has never been brought up in that world, I sometimes you see them just psychologically very off. Just operating in the normal world, and like maybe you notice some of your coworkers and stuff, they're quick to complain. They complain a lot, every little thing, you know. Whereas the martial arts mentality is not that way.
No, no, and you're right because you're forged in the struggle in the fire, and there is nothing more pure than martial arts because you don't rely on a team. It's all on you. You know, whether you're competing or just trying to learn maybe a kata or a form or how to do a technique, it forces you to grow. It forces you to learn. And man, you're doing it in martial arts, but like you said, that goes into every aspect of your life,
Right.
you know? And you do see the difference. You do see the difference. People complaining, people saying, oh, well, I got to work an extra hour at work or two. And it's like, dude, it's no big deal. You know what I mean? You're getting extra money, and you
Yeah.
know, if you had that martial arts background, physically, you'd be able to do it too. You know, and you'd have the mentality
Yes.
to do it. And I think that you know, you could say that it's lacking today, maybe with the young generation, but I'm sure the older folks said that about our generation when we were kids. And but you know what? Maybe there's some truth to it, but
Yes.
um, ultimately it's always going to do good, whether that comes from parents getting their kids into martial arts or a school system
Yes.
martial arts like how they have in Japan. I think uh, it does people good, and like you said, you know, not everybody's going to be a saint or
No.
going to behave correctly or whatever, but at least it's a good structure.
Right.
It's a good thing, a tool that's there to help mold people into being resilient and hopefully being better people, good people.
And like you're saying, you know, the martial arts training is the little world, the microcosm, where
Hmm.
you know you're going to apply how you observe yourself and how you make yourself better. You also do that in the big world, the real world, where you do that as a human being, make yourself a better personality,
Hmm.
make yourself more pleasant to be around, and you know, more sympathetic, understanding, caring, patience, all of these things that you need to grow your techniques. You're supposed to be applying in the big world, you know.
Hmm.
So you and that overall it makes your life better, whether it's in the fighting world or it's in the normal world. It's supposed to improve you and improve your life ultimately, and people, you know, that will attract certain type of people to you. And you know, I think it's like you're saying, that's a good thing. That is.
It is, and a good note on that is that you have to be in a good school with a good teacher,
Mm.
like how you're saying, because iron sharpens iron.
Well,
You know,
yeah.
you know what I mean. And
Yes.
so it's one of those things where you have to use your tools of discernment, maybe the parent or so, in finding a good teacher,
Yes.
finding a good school that has a good culture, that has that positive reinforcement,
Right.
Because unfortunately there are schools that are bad, and
Right.
that can happen, but
Absolutely.
I'd say they're in the minority though,
Overall, I think people have an idea of what martial arts is supposed to be like. So even the
hmm
ones that are a little off or the quality's not as good, they're still trying to operate, and maybe they're not that good now. Maybe 5 years from now, there'll be a better school, just like the
right, right.
teachers and people. So hopefully, but at least we kind of have this direction of how we're supposed to be. And like you're saying, my first teacher, I remember he said, if you hang out with losers, you become a loser. So it's kind of like what you said, iron sharpens iron. So you don't want to be in a messed up school where they're teaching the wrong things, or like they're all a bunch of thugs.
Yeah.
Which I've been to schools like that.
Oh dear.
Yeah, not my most pleasant experience. I mean, when you go to a school like that, the only thing you really have to gain is you just become a little tougher. That's it. But
hmm
yeah, it's not good. I mean, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. So
It is. It is. It is. Yeah, and like I said, a good teacher, a good sensei, Sifu, sets the example.
that's right.
And so if you get a bad vibe or a weird vibe or something's not, then okay, this place ain't for me.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, well, Mr. Pedro, thank you so much. It's we're at 41 minutes now, so I think this is a good place to cut it.
Absolutely. It's always good talking to you. I enjoy the
Likewise.
conversation. I hope everybody, enjoys it too.
Yes, 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 and hope to do this again for sure.
Absolutely, will do. Absolutely.
All right. Well, take it easy, and thank you so much.
You too, brother.
All
I look
right.
forward to talking to you again, man.
All right. All right. Later's everybody.